Service above self. As Rotarians, that phrase means a lot to us, and it's my privilege today to introduce to you someone who has lived under that principle. As a very young man, Jerry Maygarden joined the United States Navy to serve his country. That was probably encouraged by the impending draft, but it was still a need he felt that he had to satisfy. And following his enlistment and touring duty in Vietnam, he returned home to complete his college education at the University of West Florida, and then began his professional career. Later, he was encouraged to provide service to his city by serving on the Pensacola City Council. He was elected and served for several years in the council, and then later in his term of office, the then longtime Mayor Vince Webb stepped down, and if you recall, at that time, our mayors were elected not by the population, but by this council. The council looked to Jerry for leadership and elected him mayor, where he served for several years during some difficult times in our city. Following his term as mayor, he then felt a need to serve his state. And he, at that time, was elected to the Florida House of Representatives, where he served for 8 years, ascending to the position of Majority Leader of the Florida House, second only to the Speaker of the House in its importance. When he retired from his professional career at Baptist Healthcare and was completed with his political career, as his friend, I suggested that he begin to spend more time with grandchildren, golf, and Alabama football. But as usual, Jerry didn't take my advice. Last year, the Pensacola Chamber was undergoing some dramatic changes, and the board members of the Chamber felt they needed new leadership. So again, Jerry was pressed into service. And currently he is serving, again, as the President and Chief Executive Officer of the Greater Pensacola Chamber of Commerce. And today he's going to talk about vital communities, great places to live, work, and play. Please welcome Jerry Maygarden.
Paul Young is one of my dearest friends, and I didn't know you were going to tell him everything you knew, but I appreciate your very kind introduction. And Henry, you make a great preacher. Tell a good story. Really a good story. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the Chamber of Commerce today. When David Stafford and I met some months ago and sort of talked about the year of programs, we decided we'd have a month of membership programs. And he was going to do a program, and then I'd do a program, and I didn't know he'd leave town and leave Martin in charge. So we got the B team today. But we're glad to be here. It's a delight to be here to present to Rotarians. Rotarians are very special to me for a lot of reasons. But one very important reason is really come into focus in the past year is because Rotary is a business organization. Our roots run very deep in business, not just civic participation in civic leadership. In fact, you all wear a badge that has a designation on it of some sort of business endeavor in the community. And back last fall, when we ran into a really difficult situation at the Chamber, which I'll tell you more about in a moment, it became kind of clear to me that we needed an open dialogue in the community about what the Chamber's mission is and how it pursues that mission going forward. I decided then that I wanted to take that message to Rotarians. This is my 6th Rotary Club meeting in the last 6 weeks. There's a message in that. If you're thinking about making up anytime soon, you might want to go to one of those instead of one of those I haven't made it to. But I wanted to go out and see the business community and talk about the issues that I think are most pressing and that are very important to us here and now, today. Last fall, Bill Evans sort of stepped up, and Margaret's been helping us deal with this ever since, and said, you know, you guys are taking a lot of government money to do a government function called economic development. And when you do that, you are now subject to the Sunshine Law. And quite honestly, we probably have been subject to the Sunshine Law for a very long time. But for the first time in the history of the Chamber, which incidentally is 125 years old this year, for the first time in our history, we began to perform the function of economic development under the guise of the Public Records Law and the Sunshine Law in the state of Florida. That is really not easy. Yvonne Emerson can tell you that organizations like public trade associations have to be somewhat discreet in their dealings or they lose a lot of their client base. I mean, the last thing that a company up in Hershey, Pennsylvania wants to hear is that if they're expressing an interest in Pensacola, Florida, that we're going to publish the name of the company in the newspaper. It impacts their employees, it impacts their stockholders, it impacts their hometown, and it's not something they warm up to kindly. And yet here we were, faced with the probability of having to operate in the sunshine and not just make our clients visible to the world, but everything else we do. Who our donors are, what their address is, what their phone number is, and how often you can call them for a donation. I mean, all of that stuff suddenly became very public. And we had to sort of think about how are we going to function in this new environment. Well, let me take you back to about 1990, because it's important that we build a little bit of understanding about where we've been before we go much further. 1990 was an interesting time. We had a pretty good economy going for us here in Pensacola. In fact, we had just completed building the new regional airport. Not the new international airport, but the new regional airport. We put $35 million in it. I think the tarmac cost $35 million today. But we had just finished that airport and the economy was going pretty well. And I got a call from Vince Wibbs. And Vince, Paul's already told you about, was my predecessor as mayor of the city of Pensacola. He said, come by the dealership, I want to talk to you. Now that was rare. He didn't normally summon you to the dealership. I thought I was going to have to buy a car. I got down there and I said, what's up? He said, I want you to know that I'm fixing to step down. And I think you need to step up. And that week, it became apparent that I was going to be elected mayor from on council, which was a little unusual. Vince was not a council member when he was elected mayor. He was a citizen at large. But they made a decision to elect somebody from the council, and I wondered about what's transpired here that's causing all this change, all this movement. And quite honestly, within 2 or 3 weeks, we heard that Lexington was leaving Pensacola. We heard that there was this thing called the Base Realignment and Closure Commission. Brad Butcher was heavily involved in it at the time. And we took what the cowboys and the westerns say, a gut shot. We lost Naval Aviation Depot, Pensacola. By 1993, it looked pretty apparent that we were going to lose 3,000 jobs with average salaries of nearly $60,000 a year. And that's a fairly significant blow. And then not long after that, we began to experience one calamity after the other. Do you remember Oakland Aaron? Their eyes crossed northeast Pensacola 1 month apart in 1995. Followed by Charlie, followed by Dennis, followed by Ivan. And like a punch-drunk fighter, we were wobbly at the knees and we were wondering how we were going to survive the economic catastrophe. And quite honestly, the chamber began to be very, very focused. The mantra became, and Collier can tell you this, jobs, jobs, and more jobs. And we structured the organization in order to pursue jobs. That was the buzzword of the day. How do we bring jobs to Pensacola? Now I'm talking about economic development because it's a little bit of a two-sided coin, and it's important that you follow me here. On one side of that coin in economic development, and the definition is a little bit different for different people, but on one side of the coin, basically it says, how well are you marketing the community to the global world, to the folks out there? What kind of job are you doing attracting people to want to locate in your backyard, in your community? It's marketing and sales. And we were raising a lot of money under the guise of things like Vision 2015 in order to come up with the money to engage in a lot of that marketing and sales. The other side of that question asks a different question. Of that coin, asks a different question. The question is, how marketable are you? Just how marketable are you? If you're going to be out selling yourself to the rest of the world, What are you really selling? Just how marketable are you? I think both of those questions are important, and they have to be addressed. How well are you marketing? But I think what occurred throughout that period of transition, that calamity that we went through, is that this pendulum swung way over to the side and says, we've got to be aggressively marketing our community. And we might have forgotten a little bit about what it meant to be more marketable. Lon can tell you there was a time in our Chamber of Commerce when we had a labyrinth of committees, all of which were focused on critical issues facing our community. We had one on transportation. It covered ports and airports. We had one on governmental affairs, local government, state government, federal government. We had one on education, kindergarten, K through 12, state colleges, universities. We had all kinds of committees meeting on a regular basis focused on some very significant issues. But during that period of transition, a lot of that atrophied. And many of those committees went away. And we were no longer engaging people like you in dealing with significant issues confronting our community. And quite honestly, we lost interest. In 2000, the Chamber of Commerce had 2,000 members. 2,000 members. Today it has 971. Now that decline is not just because of a bad economy, and that decline is not just because we've got competitors in Gulf Breeze or in Perdita Key. The truth of the matter is people are not going to stay involved if they're not engaged in solving the community's problems. And we had stopped asking them to be engaged. We acquired the professional help, and we went out and we engaged in marketing and selling the community. And we forgot about the question, are we really marketable? And I ask you, what do you think? Now I'll tell you, back in 1985 when I was elected to the city council for the first time, you do the thing that you normally do when you buy a car. You know how you buy a car, you don't start looking at other cars. You look on the road to see how many people bought one like the one you bought, even down to the color. So I went out and started looking at other cities, and I started looking at the list of top 10. You know, everybody's got a list of top 10. AARP has a list of top 10 places to retire. There's top 10 beaches, there's top 10 healthy related communities, there's top 10 just about everything. So I started looking at that list of top 10, and it amazed me how there's a silver thread that runs through all those categories, and many of the same communities appeared repetitively. And you could probably name Sarasota, Florida, Asheville, North Carolina, Charleston and Savannah, Georgia, Colorado Springs, Eugene, Oregon, Santa Clara, Santa Barbara, California, even Minneapolis, Minnesota. These are great communities. And so I asked myself, what are they doing that's really good? What are they doing that's right? That perhaps we can engage in as a best practice to help us here in Pensacola, to help us build on our future. And what I found was some interesting things. First of all, the things that they're really good at don't cost a whole lot. They are the kinds of things that make communities great places to live, work, and play. My old professor out at the university, Judy, Ray Oldenburg, used to call them great good places. And he wrote a book to that effect. It actually was picked up as the theme for a TV show. You ever heard of Cheers? That place where everybody knows your name? It was an important theme. And when I looked at these communities and I asked myself, what is it about them that sets them apart? What is it about them that makes them really vital? I came up with a handful of things that I want to share with you before I get down from here today. First of all, vital communities are friendly. They're friendly places. They welcome outsiders and they encourage strangers to be a part of the decision-making process. They encourage people to take part in the community dialogue. Now, how many times have you heard somebody say, well, you'll never get a word in edgewise down there, you weren't born here. Vital communities are friendly places, and they are connection. They build relationships across lines, and they allow people, regardless of their socio-demographic status, to have a place at the table, to be a part of the community dialogue. Vital communities are friendly places. Vital communities are also enlightened. And I use that word enlightened, but basically I believe vital places place a premium on education. I remember years ago I went and heard at a political rally, heard a county commissioner, and Broker, are you here? I'm not picking on the county, but it was a county commissioner, and he was bragging about the fact that he never completed high school. And I thought to myself, you know, what bozo would brag about that? It's okay that you don't graduate from high school, but we ought to be encouraging people to reach out and get all the education they can get, to lift themselves up, to be bright folks, to be minds that inquire about better ways to solve our community problems. And I find that really vital communities place a premium on education. They believe in mental growth and maturity through honest inquiry, and they place a premium on learning. And they place a premium on learning at all ages and stages of life. You know, I was told the other day out at the Early Learning Coalition that about 27% of our young people arrive at the first grade not prepared to go forward. They're behind the curve. And then I hear that about 30% of our young people don't graduate from high school, and I begin to see a pattern. And you got to ask yourself, when are we going to deal with that? How are we going to deal with that? I personally don't believe that poverty is an excuse for poor educational outcomes, and that we need to tackle those problems, and we need to intervene early, because it's the future of our workforce. It's the people who are going to make the machines go, make the business work. And it's vital to a vital community that we have a source of manpower to draw on that will build a better community for us to live in. And let me tell you, if you're educated, you're going to be healthier. Just knowing your numbers is important. Jimmy Jones will tell you, if you know what your cholesterol is, you know how big your waist is, you know how many pounds you weigh, you know all those good numbers. Knowing those numbers are the first step in improving your health. And you can't imagine how impactful and how much lost productivity we have in this county because people choose to engage in bad behaviors like smoking and drugs and alcohol. And does it surprise anybody that right now diabetes is at epidemic proportions in Escambia County? And that the Partnership for a Healthy Community is into its fifth 5-year cycle of discovering that we're not improving the quality of health care in this community, not the quality of delivery, but the quality of our health and its impact on our workforce and on our future. Vital communities are energetic. They're physically active by design, and they promote development of sound minds and robust bodies. I know you think Eugene, Oregon is a healthy city in the country, but it's Minneapolis, St. Paul. It's the healthiest city in the country. And we need to learn from those people. And we need to design places that are walkable, livable, that are enjoyable, to be out in the sunshine here in Pensacola. And finally, I have found that vital communities are compassionate communities. They don't pass laws to embarrass poor people. They don't engage in a dialogue that drags the poorest of the poor through days of destruction in the newspaper. Vital communities recognize the needs of individuals, and they give liberally to provide relief, alleviate suffering, and promote opportunity. That's what vital communities do. I invited Quint Studer here today to embarrass him, to be my guest, because Quint has hung in here with our community through thick and thin for a number of years. And there's a lot of bragging going on downtown about all the success the politicians are having rejuvenating downtown. But I want to tell you, nothing lends one candle power of light to what's taking place downtown greater than Quentin Rishi Studer's generosity. Generosity is a powerful binder for every community. And it's a way to bring people together, and it's a way to make things happen for the good. And finally, that brings me to my topic, which is industry. Vital communities are industrious places. They seek ways for people to engage in honest labor, and they are diligent, clever, and assiduous in their work. We need to create jobs, but the best way to create jobs is by creating a vital community. And asking ourselves, is this a marketable place? Is this the kind of place that would attract people who want to put their business here, want to live here? Are we cranking out the kind of workforce that's attractive? I maintain that if people are better educated and healthier, industry will beat a path to our door. We won't have to buy the first airplane ticket. I think that's item number one on our business and community agenda going forward. Now, I've told you already we've lost 1,000 members. So I'm not going to ask for any money, but I'm going to ask you to come home. We need you to sign up and be a part of what the Chamber is doing. We're changing our direction. It's not that we're going to abandon the notion of marketing the community, because we've got to do that. But we are going to place greater emphasis on creating a community that's marketable, that's brighter, friendlier, better educated, compassionate, and healthy, so that people will want to live, work, and play here well into the future. So my plea to you is, just come home. I need you to be involved. Thank you.
Are there any questions for Jerry today?
Jerry, I just want you to know I did graduate from Washington High School. I graduated from Southern College, so I just wanted to let you know that you're free. I think it's great to hear what you're talking about healthy communities. I know the Florida Association of Counties next year wants to take a bigger flight than what we're doing in the state of Florida with healthcare. I know I've gone to Tallahassee to meet with the Florida Chamber and discuss some of the initiatives they're doing. What are things you see happening here with healthcare and the Chamber engaging in that? Talk to us.
Well, one of the things we're doing is we're reconstructing that labyrinth of committees. And I don't want to sound like, oh my gosh, there's another committee. But quite honestly, we do need ways to engage our best minds and our best talent in solving problems. And one of the best ways to do that is to recreate that infrastructure of deliberation that goes on within committees. And we've already asked the group to convene to talk about health care. And one of the things that the Chamber is going to do is look at a way perhaps of providing a good housekeeping seal of approval, if you allow me to use that term, for programs that are being successful. We took our foundation, we've had a foundation for many years, but it had a board that was just a mirror image of the Chamber board, and it just functioned like a repository of dollars. And we've given it a new board of directors. It's got people like Jim Mathis as president, we've got folks like Stan Connolly, a number of active people in the community who are major contributors both through corporate and individual gifts to be a part of that chamber. And we've asked them to do three things. One, study the community and give us a better agenda for the future. Two, raise the money to fund improvements. And three, help us to decide where to put that money in order to encourage success. Now, that's not how do you put that money in our back pocket, it's how do you put that money into the University of West Florida or the Pensacola State College or into one of the hospitals or healthcare programs that's enjoying some degree of success in improving healthcare. We're going to do the same thing with education. We're going to reconstruct the deliberative infrastructure necessary to both plan, fundraise, and fund organizations that are doing a good job of intervening and helping people to get on their feet early in the education cycle. The business community has a stake in that, and one of the things I have found is that 80% of our members are employers of less than 25 employees. That's the bulk of our membership, and they are the creators of 80% of our jobs. And they want to build a better community in which to be successful. And if we would just engage them in that process, I believe we'll get good results and we'll get good answers. So what are we doing? We're making better use of our foundation. We're creating the infrastructure necessary to be deliberative about some of these problems and not fuss about them, not squabble about them. And we're going to be looking for ways in which to apply dollars to positive best practices going forward. Thank you for the question. And I knew you'd graduate from high school. Anything else? Thank you very much.
Having spoken to 6 or 7 Rotary clubs, you probably got a closet full of ballpoint pens, baseball caps, etc. And here's a cup to add to your collection.